Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the May 2025 meeting of the Budget Committee to order. Okay. Okay, talk a little louder. I believe we have a quorum. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do have some people.
But none of our members are, okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the April 15th Budget Committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Is everybody in favor? Everybody who's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Been approved? Okay, so at this point, we are going to open it up for clarifying questions. It's an opportunity to ask any questions to clarify, but we'll leave discussions or opinions for the later time. So do we have anybody who has any questions regarding the
I
budget?
think we're gonna want to do our presentation.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Kyle, can you bring up, we just have a really brief presentation for you, today. So, just to, provide a little bit more information, Budget Committee members, you received some additional information through email, and we just wanted to share that out with the folks. So, next one, please, Kyle. So just a reminder that our theme this year is really people first, to be able to focus our funds on our students, our staff, our families. And just some information just to start us with our why. Okay, the next slide, please. This year, we did things a little bit differently. We asked for questions and then we posted the answers on our website. We had it open for about a month. And really being able to give people an opportunity to ask questions. You do have the printed document in front of you in case you want to refer to those. We received 20 questions. Once again, they're posted on the website on the finance page for anybody to see. This is a lot fewer questions than we've received in the past, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that the way we structured the budget this year answered a lot of their questions ahead of time. So that was really good feedback to get. A couple trends that we saw, there were a number of questions about federal funding and the uncertainty of that. And then also some changes in the budget because of ESSER funds sunsetting and how we were able to use ESSER funds for other things to be able to save some money out of the general fund, for instance, with our over the last 3 years with ESSER funds being able to use those funds for curriculum purchases, and that's just an example. So those were really some trends that we saw. One question I received via email that wasn't submitted this way, but I thought was really important to bring up is request for a staff budget presentation, because a lot of our staff, can't come to this meeting because of other things. And so I thought that was a really good suggestion. So Tony and I are working to find a date where we'll be able to offer a budget presentation for our staff a little bit later on. So we'll do that after school. So anyway, good suggestion for that. Next slide. One of the questions that was presented in our last meeting was wanting to have a breakdown of the federal programs. So that's Exhibit B that you see in your packet. And this gives a breakdown. What you'll notice in this is an average between this year and next year. The reason we do that is because we are not notified by the Oregon Department of Ed about the federal allocations until June sometimes. So we do our best guess by averaging. The other thing that regarding federal funding, usually Oregon Department of Ed has received those allocations by now, But I was in a statewide superintendent meeting today and ODE confirmed that they have not received that yet. So that's just a little bit of reasoning behind that. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, just wanted to review with you, most of this, except for the last one, is information that I shared in the first budget meeting. If there are any staffing changes, just a quick review of that because of the new, requirement for civics and college and career readiness courses, then, one of our, social studies teachers that has been a 0.5 half-time, it has been increased to full-time in order to meet those requirements. Another thing that we have here, that we talked about was, we have a teacher in our preschool program that is a non-licensed teacher, which meets all the requirements from Preschool Promise, so there's an adjustment there. The only position, that we are really eliminating is the 0.4 instructional technology TOSA. We have 3 other, folks in the technology department, and as I explained last time, from the instructional lens of technology, one of the great things that came out of COVID was our staff becoming really skilled with technology and not needing those supports. And then also adding our 2 STEAM teachers, that a lot of the technology that this person was providing to students is now being taught in those classes. We are really excited to have a certified librarian. We haven't had one in our district for many years. So being able to have one of our classified library positions become a certified. So in the past, we've used the at Northwest ESD to be our certificated librarian, but now we're going to have one on campus. So we're excited about that. Another thing is one of our licensed, our certified TOSAs, student support, has been turned into a second assistant principal position at the elementary school. And then the one on here that you haven't seen before is in our district, we have had a district registered nurse and a health assistant. But after reviewing our needs, we have more and more students who are on health plans and need more support from a registered nurse. So we have turned that by eliminating the health assistant position and bringing in a second nurse. So we will have nurses in each of our buildings next year to meet the needs of all of our students.
What is the ESD service credits?
Oh, yes, thanks. So in order to offset the costs of that position, at the ESD, we have service credits, which are like money that we can spend through them. And so we hired that registered nurse through the ESD, but will still be working on site, and we pay for it through the service credits we have for them.
So it's on budget though and filled.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. But it does not alter our budget that you've been presented.
Got it. So the 1 FTE on there is for that position?
Yes.
1 FTE that's listed
Mhm.
is
So
for-
just to give you just a little quick view on, so we're part of the Northwest Regional ESD, 20 school districts. They receive funding, federal funding and state funding to be able to support school districts through a local service plan.
Okay.
And so our allocations of service credits, we can use those for a variety of programs, which we do.
Got it.
And so by using some of our service credits for this position, we're able to add a registered nurse.
Great. And are those service credits rolled up as a single credit on the balance sheet?
Our service credits are, Tony, can you explain about where the service credits live?
So the service credits don't live in our budget.
Oh. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're a part of the ESD and we just get credits from them for services.
And we use it for a menu of items. You know,
Right.
we use it for our technology support. They host Synergy, which is our student information system. We use it for finance park that the middle school goes to and some other services.
Okay, so are they debited out though on the budget? So
Yeah.
like page 69 where it lists I think that's where it is, right? Like the health services to,
It will not be listed in there because we're contracting with the ESD. The second registered nurse will be an ESD employee that will work for us, funded by the service credits.
okay, so got it. Don't mean to pull this thread too much, just want to understand it. 'Cause it's on there.
Sure.
Is the
Hey.
in that line, page 69, 2130 health services, 244 debit. That is this, one of those is this role?
So what you see in there are the positions that we had before, which are our district nurse and the health assistant, but
Okay.
we're using a registered nurse comes at a higher compensation.
Right, yeah.
So we're using the ESD service credits to offset. So this is still a correct figure in there, and then it will be supplemented by the ESD credits. So we're braiding funding.
Rating, I don't know that term, but that's.
When you use two
that
different
one.
funding
I'll use
sources
that one.
for one.
Yeah,
It's a fun one.
yeah, I like that. I wish I would have. Okay, got it.
So health assistant, salary rate is lower
There,
than
it's a
registered
classified.
nurse.
Mhm.
And the revenue we're getting from it's kind of aligns with the higher, salary.
Yes, yes.
It's basically offsetting the cost of the health system that we already have in our budget, so they're paying the
Mhm.
the
To be
remainder.
able to
of the
have those
cost, right.
registered nurses,
Okay.
right?
That
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
Susan, this is Kevin. Sorry, I was on the other call. But the ESD is funded by the school districts, correct? So they're 100% funded by the school districts, right? Or is there some other state funding directly to ESD?
No, the school districts, the ESD is not funded by school districts. The ESD, like we get money, for our budget. The ESD gets funds from both the federal government and the state.
Okay.
In order to provide additional services for the school districts in their region. There's 20 school districts in our ESD, from Clatsop, Columbia, Washington, and Tillamook County.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you.
And so funds are allocated, as I mentioned in the local service plan, they're allocated by the enrollment of students in your district. How many funds you get.
Are those funds captured on page 55 for
No.
sources? But we debit them out.
We spend the credits in the variety of services, but the local service plan, our board every year approves the local service plan. That is how those funds are allocated.
What's the total amount of those funds?
I don't know off the top of my head.
But they don't technically give us any funds.
No.
They give
No.
us.
We spend them, so it's like. I'm
They don't
trying
give
to,
us
I'm
funds, we
trying
don't
to
give
think of a
them
good
funds.
analogy.
They just-
We're allocated so many funds, we can
Right.
use them from a menu of items. And no, they do not give them to us. They manage those.
Okay.
Separate from our regular budget. Mhm. And in small districts, it's really helpful because they have a lot more services that we couldn't afford in our own district. And so, like I said, we get to choose every year from a menu of what works for us to be able to spend them on.
Okay, last question on that. I love a good braided fund, I've always said. Where else do those funds exist in the budget where we're debiting it out from an overall balance? That's the only one
Only one,
in the budget. There's no other,
correct.
the ESD
They're
funds.
separate in the local service plan.
okay, got it. So in theory, then we have an additional $200,000 in the budget that is debiting out, but we don't have that on the budget as a credit, right? So like there's $200,000 there that we've debited out of our number of the 33 million.
Are you talking about it from that line item?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So like, that we know that we're gonna get a credit for it, but we've recognized it as a debit on this.
No,
Which page?
that $200,000 there is in our regular budget. Nothing from the ESD service credits is reflected in here.
Okay, then what's on so page 69 then is something else.
69, I believe, is that the math?
It's,
That's the
Yes.
two health services
Says map.
classified
it's,
manager.
are you,
It's
are
the
you
MAC
referring to that?
funds.
Medicaid?
Yeah,
Medicaid is given directly to us, not through the ESD.
right, but those two FTE are not these people.
This one is our person, this one, we're spending this much on this person, and the ESD is spending the rest on the person. Right?
Right. You said that well.
The ESD money would never be in our budget because it's never.
It's not managed by
Not
us.
our.
Mhm. Mhm. I know, it's kind of like who's on first.
No, it's
But-
fine. I don't wanna go down a rabbit hole here. Too late. I wanna, what I'm saying is I just wanted to make sure that if there were other debits in the budget that we don't have a credit for, are we basically like allocating money that, or like not improperly, but allocating money that we in fact are getting a source for, and we're not recognizing the source of funding on
No,
it?
we're not required to recognize it in ours because it's the ESD's budget.
Yeah, but. Yeah.
Kyle, I think that's the last slide, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I hope that information is helpful for you and, that's all we have.
So now we open for clarifying questions. So now we open for clarifying questions, not discussion or opinions, just questions that need to be elaborated on for you guys.
Tony, just a question. Last year, you were kind enough to do a 3-year projection. Do we have one of those for this year? Projecting our ending fund balance for 3 years?
So there is a projection in here, let's see. And it's funding. I don't know what page it's on off the top of my head.
And while you're looking or track that down, so I'm looking at the projection from last year. And the whole idea of budgeting and projecting is to kind of hopefully have an idea of where things are going to land 12 months from now, right?
Mhm.
And so we have a huge variance. And one I made a big stink about last year, as I recall, is our ending fund balance was depleting, was shrinking. And I made
Mhm.
that over and over. And not only didn't it shrink, it's off by 100%. We missed it. It's 100% over what we thought it would be. Basically, it's 8 million versus the 4. What
So
happened? I mean, yeah.
And right now, we're just asking clarifying questions for the budget. What is your question for Tony?
I want to know if we have a projection in order to just get a feel for where we're going. So projection, this is, Sandra, you can answer it too. I don't care, whoever, but I mean, do we have it and have we all looked at it? Because this is a kind of important where we're going over the next 36 months. And so that's the question.
Well, on page 17, there's assumptions and trends, and there's the 5-year with 1 year look back and then the projections moving forward. So page
Okay.
17.
And then I just would ask this again. It's just we were expecting to have ending fund balance in the 4 million range, and we're at 8. How do we miss it that far?
So part of it was construction and projects that were done in July instead of June. That was part of it.
But that would have been known when we were doing it. When we were doing this budget in May, we would have had an idea. I mean, I just want to make sure when we miss that far, when you're off by that far, I just want to make sure we're really working with the right numbers or are we going to be will we be close next year? I just get a sense for that, but we're so far off. It's a positive variance, but it doesn't make me feel a lot better that we're that far off.
Kevin, we're gonna need to wait to have a motion before we.
Okay,
move.
that's fine. You bet.
Thanks.
Are the clarifying questions regarding the notes from that were sent out?
Sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because we're not going line by line on those, right?
We're not.
Okay.
I have a question.
You bet.
When it comes to, and this is just no big deal for the budget, just wondering with the certified librarians, what's the
Mhm.
difference between the classified?
That's a good question. So I don't know if people heard that. Yeah,
Sorry. The difference between a classified and certified librarian.
So, we have two different unions. We have the classified and the certified. Classified, includes instructional assistants, custodians, food service, transportation. And then a certified librarian, needs to have a license through Teacher Standards and Practices Commission, as a licensed teacher and then, as a licensed librarian.
I guess maybe the benefits of what we get.
The benefits, yeah, that's a great question. So, somebody who has all of that educational background and can be able to do, some visioning and being able to move our district forward by working with the teachers to be able, to really tie all of that into the curriculum.
Can they teach?
They can, yes, they're licensed teachers. Mhm.
Thank you.
And they often teach, whether it be, like a technology class or, depending on what their area of certification is. Good question.
Right, so along those lines and I appreciate the notes, they were super helpful on the responses back. So I asked about the 10% increase in funding, right? So 3 million in the general fund. Between the proposed and the adopted from last year, so about 3.1. So 10% increase. And then that's coming. All right. The projects. Got it. So we expect a 10% increase in funding overall because of all good things. Got it. Super cool. And then the 5,400 was the one. I'm so sorry, Tony, you emailed me about it and I did not respond.
Okay.
I thought about responding and then
That's
I
okay.
forgot. On the 5,400 fund, and this is kind of that piece of the adopted beginning fund balance
Mm-hmm.
and the 25-26 proposed beginning fund balance. I just want to understand,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 55. Sir, for resources. So the 5,400, the general fund, it basically just flows up the summary from 12 into those respective, write them down, line items.
Right.
So the 6.3 to 8.4.
Right.
What is that growth? So that is saying what then in our end of year? And this is the resources. So this is sources document.
Yes.
Correct.
So that was the adopted, that was the assumption, and we came in at over 8 million instead. Because of projects that didn't happen. We spent a lot of ESSER money. For curriculum and technology that were in the general fund that was spent with ESSER. So it was a lot of factors.
Okay, so
Yep.
we basically came in 2 million over, so
Yes.
we had 2 million left on the table.
Yes.
Great execution and planning. And that is a source going into, how much of that is being used then in the 2026 budget?
So because we are putting the 3.3 million into reserves plus our ending fund balance, it it's not going to affect the budget.
Well, that would help our budget, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So we're getting 1 million in local revenue additions is the assumption.
that's the assumption.
And then the additional 2 million is we're carrying that forward basically and saying we are going to use that this year to get us to that 33.1 million in total funding. Right? Like
Yes.
that brings us to the.
That brings us to 33 million.
Right. Okay. So kind of like pulling that thread then of the risk of federal funding. And I want to clarify, so the average piece, if we're looking at that overall, so 3.9 last year, 2.5 this year in funding, right? So like those two, we're averaging those across. But you guys have been executing and moving the ESSER funds, like we've known that was going away this year. So that 1.2, you've been shuffling that around, making like managing that for 3 years now, 4 years now.
Yeah,
Why is, I think that we have if that feels, if you're gonna do an average for a number that really significantly represents, you know, a quarter of this budget overall, that really pulls that average up. And it's having you put too much money into those reserves. If you just look at federal funding this year that we're saying is at risk is 2.5 million, but we're actually gonna say, no, we're doing 3.2. Why that additional 700,000? That's being heavily skewed because of that 1.2 million that you already knew you were gonna lose. So that was never
I guess
in
we
the
have to keep
budget.
it to questions,
Yeah.
right? Just clarify.
That is the question.
Okay,
Yeah.
what was the question?
Yeah, that's my question is like, if we're saying that we're budgeting a 2 million in reserve
So what
because of
is
the
that
average.
number? Let's go by patents. Where's that 3 point?
It was right there. It was the 3.2 is the average between 3.9 last year and 2.5.
Yeah, let's go with the facts so we can understand as well your questions.
Mhm.
Where is that? Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, no
So
worries.
we can follow as
Hey,
well.
can I ask a clarifying question along the same lines, just to clarify what we're saying?
Oh,
So
yeah.
the 10,
Yeah,
is that
let's-
okay or not?
Let's
Okay.
finish first, okay? So, like I said, we don't have the allocations yet. We have to do our best that we can to estimate. And so that's how we came up with this average of the 3.2 million. Besides federal funding, there's other unknowns as well. Because as you've seen in our budget, the student investment account, the SIA that we receive, which is on the corporate activity tax, when there are reductions in federal funding, then schools that are in the state school fund and that receive these other Oregon grants, that's when the Oregon Department of Ed and the state needs to look at, okay, if federal funding comes in short and districts unlike ours don't have the extra funds to be able to set aside, then when they look at the state school fund, which once again, we're not in, but when you look at the state school fund, if the state school fund comes up short because they're trying to make up a difference in federal funding, they have the ability to pull from some other state funding. So for instance, if you, those of you who are around the first year when we had the student investment account, which is from, like I said, funded from the corporate activity tax, we were given our original allocations and then it was reallocated and we only received a fourth of what they had originally allocated us because they were using the money that they took out of some of those grants to subsidize the state school fund.
How much is,
I probably just confused that even more.
no, that's really good
But,
clarifying.
So that is why it's really important for our district to be able to have enough in the reserves to be able to cover some unknowns. Because the majority of our student investment account, of our CTE, Measure 98, all of those, the majority of that is staffing.
Yeah, and to clarify, Jason, I believe this is all the revenues we get from federal funding, correct?
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, probably in fiscal year 24-25, this is for eligible federal fund revenues schools are getting. And this is for 25-26, and federal, they go by, eligibility. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it's go down. And since this is solely revenue, so this number actually, what you're saying, why it's different, it's a federal government. That's how they allocate the revenue sources. Is that aligns?
And it's always an interesting, overlap, because school districts need to develop their budget and project and get it approved before they know exactly what their allocations are. And we kind of laugh that, the minute you put out a budget, it's wrong, because allocations come in, and we do our best job of projections.
Like, for example, let's say some class costs school 100K. And federal government says, I'll pay you 60K, but you have to cover 40K. So for this biennium, and then we're still gonna have in our budget that 100K, but then next year we want to continue that class. But federal government says, no, I'll give you only 40K this year. Now we have to come up with 60K to continue that class. It's a matching game.
It's a good point. And you got to be watching those, Jason, because if you get those federal grants that pay 100% that ratchet it down, it hits the general fund budget. I want to get back to this projecting thing, because I do think that we're missing something.
Jason's question was answered.
Yeah, not my circus, not my monkeys. So I want to stay in my lane as the budget committee person. I am simply clarifying for the board that I think that you have over-indexed on the 3.2 by averaging the last two budgets. You have over-indexed on the amount of money that you are not using this year to support the buses and all of those other things. You've over-indexed on that amount because of the way that they did that average across. That is simply my clarifying point there. That if that's the list of all the federal funds, you have managed ESSER exceptionally well. That one's not coming, or that one wasn't gonna be here. So that's my point in like kind of clarifying like how that number was generated.
I hope I have.
So, right, but
But I think the really important point is, like when you're planning a party, you want to have too much food or not enough.
but
Instead
you
of
have
not enough.
a reserve budget for that already. You have a reserve fund.
But a reminder that the board requires a 10% in reserves and in board policy. And we did revisit that not too long ago, and the board continued to be committed to that 10%.
Is that the full budget, Susan? It's like a 50 million, whatever the full budget is. Is that the 10%? So it'd be 5 million. Is that the number for beginning fund?
So yes, across all funds.
Okay, that's a question. Yeah, so all of this money, I mean, 80% of this budget goes to salaries, or give or take, and then we have the facilities to take care of, and then we have all this other stuff. All this money came in because we way overshot our beginning fund balance. We missed it by the projection we had last year was 4.49, and we've got an $8 million beginning fund balance. That's where all the new revenue is, because that's what's considered revenue. And so we got this 8 million. Now, how do we miss it that far that we just decided not, again, now I've done enough budgeting where I've had some budgets and moved things around too. But I just wondering, that's a big gap. And I just wondering, Tony, this is a question to you. Help me understand, are we going to see that again?
Can you restate your question?
Yeah, you bet. So in this document that we had last year, this is, I don't know if you see it, but it's a 3-year projection, which is very, very handy because it showed what we see happening, like our 10% board requirement. And on it, it said this year, because I made a big stink about it last year because we're showing these big reductions. But
What
then
page?
Oh, this isn't in this one. It's last year's
Oh.
week.
Well,
Yeah.
That's not my question from this.
Yeah, yeah.
budget.
No, so the point is the projection, because again, once it's signed, I knew it was going to land there, but it's
Kevin,
off by so
Fine,
far.
but
I'm
This
sorry.
budget, clarifying question from this budget.
Sandra, please stop interrupting me, please. Can I just please ask a question? I'm just wondering why we're off by so far. That's the only.
In order to ask additional questions, we really need a motion on.
Yeah, we need it's just rules, Kevin, it's not personal. We have to do this in a certain way to follow board rules. So right now, we're just asking specific clarifying questions. That's the only reason why I'm stopping you. We can open this up later when we put a motion on there, and then you can ask your questions deeper. But right now, it has to be clarifying questions.
I feel like there's a lot of confusion, and that's what I'm trying to help here, is that this money is being generated by way overshooting the beginning fund balance. So if that's, where did the money come from? The extra 2 or 3 million, that's where it came from.
You ready? No,
Comments next.
okay,
Check your agenda.
I'm ready.
Okay, no more questions? Clarifying questions? Thank you. Let's see. We are moving to public comment. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes and cannot give their time to another speaker. There will be up to 30 minutes of public comment allotted. Is there anybody in the audience here that has public comment for tonight?
Anybody online?
Anybody online? Now we ask for somebody to make a motion, regarding, this year's 2025, budget. If anybody is ready to make a motion, you have to, recite the.
I'll make a motion.
I got it. I move to approve the Seaside School District budget, number 10 budget for the 2025-2026 as follows. General fund, 33,193,343. Special revenue fund, 7,182,425. Debt service fund, $7,464,007. Capital projects fund, $1,656,444. Total all funds, $49,496,219. As presented with a tax rate of 4.4105 per thousand of assessed value to be assessed in support of the general fund, and at the rate of 52 cents per thousand of assessed value for local option tax. I further move that a tax of $5,770,417 to be approved for the service of bonded debt obligations for the school district.
Is there a second?
I second that.
We have a motion made and seconded. We can now open it up for discussion.
Is this, can I just would like to ask the same question.
You
Um,
can-
was that?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, so Tony, can we go back there? What, to the beginning fund balance where we missed it by a mile and we took a late vote last time too. So were these known maybe beforehand and just a way to just not spend the money and then overshoot the beginning fund balance? Because that's what it looks like. But I don't know, and I just want to get an idea of how accurate will we be this year? Because we rely on these to kind of like look forward for the district. So what would, yeah,
So again, we had ESSER funds, we were able to pay
we knew about
for
those.
things like the curriculum, which was 800,000, things like
Right.
that.
Right.
Technology, we have a 5-year replacement. We were able to get 2 years worth of replacements. There's several other things we were able to do. Projects that we were gonna do in the ESSER funds fell through, we didn't do them. So that's why it was so far off.
Okay,
And
so
Tony,
we just,
What would be helpful, Kevin, right? Your name is?
Yeah.
Maybe give a list of one-time cost that sometimes in a budget, one-time cost comes up from nowhere. And I think that's the list might be good too, because sometimes when we build budget, we don't think about that and it comes from nowhere. It or need, so stuff like that may change the budget projections,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Well, we're all, you can pad budgets too. And I think anybody who's run a budget, you do that. I've done it. I'm sure we have, or you just miss it. But I mean, the ESSER funds, we knew how much they were and we knew where they would be spent. We knew the buses were in there. We decided not to spend it. So again, that's just, we had these decisions throughout the year, which is fine. I just want to know how accurate will we be this year? What do we expect next year at this time for beginning fund, the next fiscal year?
So
Federal revenue would change.
No, I'm not, I don't care about federal revenue because I'm just talking about our general fund.
So if we lose federal funding, we have contingency in the general fund. So it would depend on federal funding, and it's
Okay.
going to take an action of the board to spend that money. We have to have another budget put in to spend that contingency, and the board has to approve it. So you will be able to approve it as a board member if that comes up.
It's always our goal to be as accurate as possible and as close as possible.
Right. It's important.
In all my years of doing this, this is probably, the most uncertain times with not knowing what funds we'll be getting.
Okay, so I guess so that's one one of the things, again, last year I was kind of looking at the facilities, the buildings and this and that. And it looks like there's a relatively large reduction in what we plan to spend for capital improvements. Is it 300,000? Is that what I was reading?
Yes.
Okay. And that's like a 80% reduction, right? Or 90?
We finished the softball project, which was a large project that we had budgeted for, that we spread out over a couple years. So that's why you see a reduction in that. I mean, really all we're working on now is our summer projects. And so that's why you see the reduction, is because we finished the softball field project. And so we use those funds.
So next year you think 300 is adequate though?
You got it.
Susan, you think 300 is adequate to take care of the $100 and whatever million worth of real estate that the school district is caring for? And I'm just asking. Okay, good. I'm good with that. I'm good with that if you do. Because I know we can move money around too. It's not the end of the world. I just get an idea. I really want to get a sense for I can trust the numbers for next year. And being off by this far, one way or the other, is just doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence. Like, where will we be? And we'll be watching the federal funds, of course, because we'll spend it. But that's my issue here. It's to the good. We got more money than we thought we would, so that's good. So I don't really have any issues. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a high priority
Kevin.
that we have, we can be able to continue our current service model without having to cut any positions or services mid-year.
Well, and to his question, what was the impact of that difference in funding? Was there a major impact that we had if we were off budget?
No. Okay, we have a motion on the table?
Yeah, we have a motion on the table. To approve the Seaside School District 2025-2026 budget. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay. This is gonna be a roll call vote, so as I call your name, you let me know how you vote. Brian Taylor?
Yes.
I don't vote. Catherine Davidson? Approve. Shannon Swedenberg?
Yes.
Dr. Dory Baloo?
Yes.
Jason Haig?
yes.
Nancy McCoon?
Yes.
Linda Newell?
Yes.
Laurel Sadler?
Yes.
Oh, I skipped Kevin. Kevin McCough, sorry.
I'm a yes.
And Tony Wagner?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Wanda Gomez. So that is an approval of the 2025-2026 budget for Seaside School District.
Yeah.
Not ready. Do I need to repeat this? No, okay. Let's see. There will be a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 17, 6 p.m. school board meeting for adoption of the budget. And I thank you all for committing your time to looking at our budget. I know it takes a lot. Your questions are helpful and help us to see some things that we can't see or moving forward. So thank you guys for the commitment that you guys bring to this committee. And with that, if there being no further business. In the committee meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Take a
you.
5-minute break to transition.